Hi, I'm Justine Smith with Beyond the Film Festival, and we are covering the Fantasia International Film Festival, which is basically the greatest film festival in the world. If you love horror, fantasy, or just having fun. We have two amazing guests with us today. We have Joao Alves and Paulo Leite, two producers whose project was selected as part of the Frontiers section of the Fantasia production market, industry market. And they're going to talk to us today about their film, about the horror genre, and just basically anything that comes up in conversation. Exactly. So let's just start really off the bat. Why don't you introduce your project as much as you want or as much as you can reveal, as well as what has brought you to Fantasia in Montreal?
Well, the project is called Through the Eyes of a Child. It's going to be Joao's second feature film that I'm producing. It's a complex project because it's a zombie film, but we are not treating it as a zombie film. We are treating it as the story of a boy, of a 14-year-old boy, who is experiencing the whole zombie apocalypse as it is still in its early beginnings. So many films, so many horror films, so many zombie films spend 1 minute and it's done. But we would like to show that change in society to go rolling slowly, so we could spend time with the characters and see what's happening to each one of them, because we think that there are awesome stories.
Yeah, the thing is, the zombies are looming in the background. They're not just like overnight. There's zombies everywhere. Just hear rumors. There might be zombies, and people start thinking if that's real, then everything's just weird. But no one's has ever seen them, so it's just kind of that uncertainty, and it builds on that, and that's how we're going. And we follow a kid through that growing of panic and awareness of maybe this is real.
And of course, there will be a moment when really the shit hits the fan.
And what has brought your project to Montreal and Fantasia?
Well, I was here last year, just visiting the Frontier co-production market. I was here just as an observer. I came here just to learn and see how it goes. I came with friends who actually were having a project here. And then I heard that the Frontier co-production market was having its edition in Brussels at the Brussels International Fantastic Film Festival. And then I went there too and met the amazing team that is behind the Frontier co-production market. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to try to submit a project to the Canadian, to the Fantasia edition. And we were already very heavy into the financing of his first film. The meetings, we were going through meetings, and it was coming up okay very well. And then I decided, okay, perhaps it's because the financing of his first film was already going as planned. I said, well, perhaps we should start already thinking about the second film. So we submitted the project to Frontier, and it got accepted. And we went to Frontier.
And we're here.
And then there is also, and after this, there is the craziness, absolute craziness, because then you have to prepare for pitchings, and you have to prepare posters. Then you have to prepare, you have to prepare flyers, and drone came up. We had the Frontier people. They are amazing because one of the people who do consultations for them called us and asked us what we were going to do and suggested us that we would show a trailer or something. And Jerome, he's a terrific drawer. He does storyboards like shit crazy people do. And he came up with the idea of doing an animatic of it, an animation of a scene of the film. So
the option was like what's it called?
Trailer? They have those Rippomatic trailers where people
gather clips from other movies, check the tone.
But that's already overdone, and we didn't have much time before getting here. So
and the thing about our movie, it's a zombie movie, but it's different. It's focused on a family. So if you're promoting something as being different, I didn't so much logic in go and get clips from other things, so showing we're different, but we were using others as examples, so we're not that different. So we went to the animatic of a scene.
Yeah. So he did an animation of a clip of the film.
And I know that you've actually most of your shorts, if not all of them, they were animation. Do you feel as though the animated aspect is something that you bring to the table that's different than a live action filmmaker, for example?
It is on the way of pre-production, because usually in live action you just have animatics or you have storyboards, but animatics you just have like huge effects-driven sequences, like I don't know, a mansion exploding, a dogfight, something like that. And in animation you have to do the whole movie like that, because animation is really expensive and time consuming. You have to really structure the whole thing and have like a rough cut just with, I don't know, like stick figures even. But just to get the notion of what you're going to shoot and what do you need to draw or to build or to model in 3D or whatever. And so I'm used to that whole planning thing. So I will plan the movie like it is animation. Maybe not that extensive, but most of it. Like just talking heads, I'm not sure I'm going to do because it's just talking heads. But most of it, yes. So we will know like what cameras to use, what lenses to use, exactly what we're gonna need them. Like they do in huge productions, like I don't know, a chase scene or something like that. They have all mapped out, but not for the other scenes. We're gonna have that all done. So in production, it's gonna be much faster and cheaper.
And that's important because it's important that when you're working with a small budget, when you're working in very specific conditions, it's very important that the whole crew knows exactly what's on the mind of the director. Mm-hmm. So it's a fundamental thing to keep everybody on the same page. And having storyboards, having the camera setups, have everything already on paper and well discussed and planned ahead is fundamental. It's important. Obviously, we need to have flexibility if there are something that comes up in between. You have to have flexibility, but to change it on the fly if needed. But as a rule of thumb in cinema, you plan, then you shoot what you planned, and then you edit what you shot. Works great when you are working under very small budgets. So.
How do you feel like a market like the Frontiers helps project like yours, especially as this is you're working with Bad Behavior, and this is actually going to be the second film.
Yeah.
But how does an industry market like Frontiers help kind of emerging filmmakers, emerging basically production or distribution companies?
It helps in many ways because you are networking with people who are just like you, doing the same projects that you're doing, many of them with the same constraints, with the same preoccupations, with similar goals. It helps because it gives you first-hand contact with the people who will actually finance you, distribute you, sell your film, and you have an exposure that allows you to ahead of time, plan everything accordingly. For example, there is something that is usually a big pain in the ass for indie producers, which is the deliverables, which is the amount of things that you have to deliver to a sales agent and a distributor in order to have your film effectively sold in the market. Very few people plan these things ahead, and they leave it for later, when usually it's too late. So there are so many things that you can learn from these people when you talk to them in advance, at development stage, when the film is still in the script, because there is so much good input and so much good information that these people can bring into the project.
Yeah, and just the networking, just getting your face known and knowing the other faces, knowing people that have like the same goals as you, as Paul was saying, and we can help each other, getting memento from one another. Like one guy says, I went this route, or I used this special effects company, or these guys are really good, and you get to know them on a personal level. It's not just an email or a phone call to someone you've never seen. No, you're there, just like sitting in a bar or something like that and talking with them.
And it saves us money in the end, because you are in the same room with several sales agents, several distributors, several financiers. If I were to meet all these people in their offices, I would need to have 10 times the amount of money that I have for producing the projects. So these markets are, in a certain way, fundamental, extremely important for us, because you really have everybody on the same roof, and you can get to know everybody. It's great.
And how do you feel about the fact that Frontiers is specifically geared towards genre cinema, which is quite unusual? Do you feel as though that gives, you're producing a horror film? Is there a different approach when you're going to the kind of industry market that is kind of, I don't want to say a free-for-all because that's never really the case, but something geared specifically towards, we are making genre cinema, this is our focus?
Yes, it is very important because obviously distributors, sales agents, and financiers, they're not the same thing. They're not the same. They don't want the same films. They do not finance the same type of films. They don't have the same expectations regarding the films. So it is a waste of our time and their time if we were to approach a distributor or a sales agent with a horror film and they're not interested in horror films. So it wouldn't happen. It would be a waste of time. So here in these focused markets, co-production markets, where you have genre-specific people and projects, you know that the people you're talking to want exactly the type of product that you have to sell. They want the films that you have to sell. And for directors, I'm sure it's also a good experience.
It is. It is because you know that everyone around here is in the same vibe of fantastic movies, maybe not horror, but sci-fi and fantasy, stuff like that. And that's just brilliant, knowing that everyone around you saw the same movies as you do, likes the same kind of stuff, and you can learn from them. And all of them have seen what you've seen, but other stuff too, so you get to know each other's influences and stuff like that. It's really cool, yeah.
I'm going to kind of branch out a bit beyond just the questions of the market at this point.
Right.
More in the horror genre, national cinema, as well as your project more specifically.
Okay.
I mean, this is Bad Behavior is a Portuguese Brazilian company, and while Brazil has kind of a legacy of horror, not necessarily one of the strongest in the world, but still nonetheless, you have Coffin Joe, you have icons from there. Portugal, on the other hand, has one horror film in the history, maybe two if we're going to go crazy.
No, we have more, but they're older, like in late 70s?
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like the exploitation market, though. They're
not
not
really.
even?
Not really, no.
There is a great filmmaker called Antonio de Macedo. He's still alive, but he's retired, unfortunately.
Yeah, but he still writes books.
Yeah, and he has made amazing films up until I think mid-90s. He was doing amazing films, and then unfortunately he couldn't finance his movies anymore. So
yeah, he made sci-fi, he made horror. Yeah.
I mean,
I usually say that he was Portugal's Mário Bava. He was that good.
that's high praise. I mean, I've never even heard of him, and there's almost no access to his films.
No, because most of them are not available, unfortunately.
There's a documentary now coming out.
Yeah.
They crowdfunded it to get access to the archive footage and all that.
Yeah.
Because most of his movies are just in archive. There's no few VHS and no DVDs at all. Yeah. So they have to really have the money to go into the archives and get snippets of it because it's really expensive. Mm.
But they were distributed when they were made.
Yeah.
They had distribution. And he had an amazing story. He had trouble with the church and lots of... It's a fascinating... It's going to be a great documentary when it comes up.
Yeah. It's by João Monteiro. You should check it out.
Because, a lot of countries in the world, unless you're the United States or France, there is this element of state funding that the majority of the world, the reality of film production relies on it. Both Portugal and Brazil have very different approaches to that. Why do you think that national cinemas are so reluctant to make genre cinema?
It's not that national cinemas are reluctant to genre or to horror. It is kind of it's a matter of how those financing structures were planned and what's their goal. For a long time, I believe genre was something that was to be avoided because people thought that somehow genre films were not culture, were not good cinema, or there was no cultural value in making genre films. I'm happy that today that's not so. That's less and less. It's less and less so. Anyone who goes to, like for example, the European film market in Berlin, or the American film market, or anyone who goes to any film festival where there is an actual film market, we'll see that more and more sales agents and distributors are open to genre. Those who in the past were only looking for art house cinema, they are more and more open to genre because they understand that there is amazing cinema coming from genre. And yes, in the past, there were many national cinemas that regarded genre as a lesser cinema, are more and more sensitive to that fact. In Portugal, unfortunately, that we're not there yet, but you have to be hopeful that it's going to change. And we hope to be a part of that change.
With your project, Through the Eyes of the Child, what exactly are you drawing on from the history? You say this is a zombie film that is not a zombie film.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this implication that you're actually building on the zombie genre. There's no way of making something in contradiction without acknowledging the original source. Or are there actual inspirations? Like there's a few non-zombie films that I can think of, like mostly the French. The French really like that shit, right? They came back, even the TV series Les Revenants.
Like everyone keeps talking about that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, everyone keeps talking about it.
Where is like the inspiration for creating a non-zombie zombie film?
The inspiration about that is that if you see the original zombie film, Night of the Living Dead, it's not really about the zombies. It's like these guys locked inside a house and stuff just goes haywire because they have different agendas. One has to outlast the other, but they don't have to like compete. But for some reason they do, because humans are like that and the shit hits the fan. And basically they kill each other and the zombies kill what? One guy? And everyone else dies because the other guys are assholes. And that's the essence of a good zombie movie. It's that. It's not the zombies out to get you. That could be like demons, ghosts, whatever, aliens, whatever. For me, a good zombie film is about people doing shit to one another. Unfortunately, people being people to one another in extreme circumstances. The zombies just push them in.
Yeah, the human factor is called human for a reason. Right? Yeah. We have the tendency to be entropic. I mean, you put 15 people or 10 people in the same room for some time and there's going to be rocks in the engine. And you know, it's not going to work well. In this particular project, Through the Eyes of a Child, the goal was to understand what these kids are thinking about the world. If in a world where there's an end that's coming, there's an impending doom that is going to fall upon them. And the kids represent youth, the future, so many good things. And unfortunately, they themselves realize that what they are hoping to achieve in their future will not come because death will be everywhere soon. So to me, it's fascinating. As a producer, it's fascinating to be able to produce a film that exposes so much of the riches inside young people's minds. We were discussing this some time ago, and it's amazing that we adults, we don't listen to our children, when actually the children are pretty much as mature as adults in many ways. Any 13, 14-year-old kid knows exactly how the human relations are and how the balances of power are made. but there is a difference between the kids and the adults, which is something like this. The kids don't have all the hang-ups that we have as adults. We have frustrations, we have pain, we have lots of bad baggage, we have relationships that went south. We have so many bad things that we bring into our lives, and the kids have none of that, or have very little of that. And most of the time the kids have the well-balanced view on problems. But we adults don't want to listen to that, because we want to keep our hang-ups in ourselves. So to make it short, the adults excel in destroying the beauty of the kids. That's what this film is about.
I think it's interesting that you talk about power structures and even just structures in general, and even going back to Night of the Living Dead. Zombie films in particular, in the horror genre, are rarely about the zombies themselves. They tend to be about institutions, and they tend to be about the way people behave within a structure. And the fact that Night of the Living Dead is that microcosm is about, I mean, you can argue it's about racism. It can also be about the family unit,
definitely.
as well as the American state of mind at the time. The civil rights movement has a lot of layers way beyond the racism itself.
Yeah.
Is that something that drew you even more to the zombie genre as opposed to others? I mean, you have different kinds of monsters. Zombies are a very human monster. So are vampires, but there is a fundamental gap between what they represent to audiences as well as to artists.
Well, yeah, because zombies, if you have the beauty of children, what is the thing that will work as the total opposite of it? You know, if you have the promise of life, the promise of youth, the promise of so many things, and then on the other hand, you have the total decay. You have something that it's gone, that it's no longer supposed to be here. And those are the threats that are coming to get them.
I think that sums it up brilliantly. It's just what you said. The kids think they have a future. Their parents pay for their tuition and educate them a certain way, thinking they will become a certain thing. And all of a sudden, everyone knows that's never going to happen. Everything's going to end, and it's just totally like teen angst just goes to the extreme, you know? Because the future is never what you think it is, but this time it's like complete bleakness. You know that there is no chance in hell you're going to be the person you think you were going to be, the person your parents and friends thought you were going to be. You're just going to die. It's just, yeah.
Do you feel like in the current climate, we talk about, I mean, if you go through the history of mankind, there's always the lost generation. You have it in the 20s with again in the 30s, the Depression. You have World War I, and people are again speaking of a generation that will be lost because of the economic crisis 2008 that devastated the world. I mean, Portugal was one of the countries that was probably hit the worst in Europe. But really, you're still feeling the ripple effect, and in particular, it's the young people who are suffering, and in a lot of ways, they're suffering because of the structures that predated them. The decay that came before they were even like a glimmer in their parents' eye.
Yeah, well, I think the script is exactly that. You know, that whole decay and death that came before. The dead guys were already dead when the kids came here. And so I think what Paulo tried to do with the script is exactly that. Have the whole society that predates the kids just negate the kids' futures and just block it out. Even though on the surface, people say kids are the future and all of that, they cut their options every chance they get. You know, in school that happens, you have dreams and they say you can't do that, you have to do this. And then when you end school and try to go into a career, again it ends, you say what you want to do, you can't do that, you have to do this. There's a whole bunch of structures that society has in place that when you were born were already here. It's not up to you. Be it like education, be it political, whatever it is, you are taught to think a certain way, and that is not up to you. It just depends on where you were living. That's why we have so much different culture issues. Like from Portugal to here, we can kind of sense the difference. But I have a cousin that's now in China, and things that are totally different, like the respect of the elderly and expectation and the way they look at kids. It's so different. And the thing is, when you're born, you don't get to choose like which country's identity do I fit in the most. No, you just handed that and you make the best of it.
Why do you think the horror genre it's one of the most, I don't want to say lucrative, it's not necessarily accurate, but it's an enduringly popular genre over the ages. There's very few periods in history in which, film history, let's not go too far, film history in which it dips completely out. You have periods of time where comedies are not as popular, or certain kinds of comedies. Horror seems to be so strong.
It's very stable.
Why do you think it resonates so powerfully with
Everyone's
audiences?
afraid. Everyone's afraid of something. It's something that we were actually in the panel we just came out of. They were showing this footage from a documentary, Why Horror? Why do people watch horror? It's coming out. And I believe it's the thing someone said in the documentary was that everyone's afraid of something all the time. And the horror movie, it's like an amusement park, the roller coaster. It's fear, but it's controlled fear. You get the rush, the threat, but it's on a screen, it can catch you. You're not gonna get killed, you're not gonna... And it gives you all the possibilities, like maybe vampires are real, you don't really know, you've never seen one. But as the scientific community says, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. If you see a vampire, you know they're real, but if you don't see, it doesn't mean that in the other corner there's not one just lurking to get you, you know? And I think that keeping that in the back of your mind, a little fantasy and imagination that you had as a kid, and that, again, society tries to block it out and be rational and go to work and all that, keep fantasy away. Horror keeps that imagination in the back, you know, you keep thinking about the possibilities, that magical world, be it darker or not. Like, it's something that keeps your mind thinking that maybe there's more to life than everyday life. And you get scared, you get that adrenaline rush, and usually day-to-day job is just so mundane, you know? You know that you're gonna get up, get into a car or whatever and go to the job and fill your hours, do the best work that you can, and then have a meal and go back home. And you know that unless there's like a traffic jam or something like that, it's even more boring. But if there's an accident, like right in front of you, there's a car crash, all of a sudden it becomes interesting. But if you're in a crash, it's not that interesting, you know? But if someone like crashes and explodes a car right next to you, you're scared because you were almost dead. Because you could be that car like for a few seconds, but nothing happens to you, so you get excited. I think that's why people gather up around stuff like that. Unfortunately, then there's a traffic jam for everyone else. But it gets your juices pumping. You get that energy that normal life doesn't get you. And horror movies have that concentrated in the screen.
Fear is also... there are several feelings and sensations that are universal, truly universal. Love is one of them. We all love the same... We all feel love, and love is love. It may manifest in different ways, but we all love. That's something that is clear. Fear is the same thing. We all fear, and we all know what it is to feel fear, and we all try to avoid fear. So we may not fear the same things, like we don't love the same things, but we all fear. So fear is something that binds us together as a society. We all have our common fears, and quite in the same way we have our own universal expectations. So fear is also something that reflects us very well. I have no doubt that 300 years from now, or 500 years from now, when someone wants to see what it was to be a Canadian or a Portuguese man or woman in the early 21st century, or in the late 70s of the 20th century, they are going to go back to horror films and horror novels, because horror reflects us in a way that few other genres can.
Do you feel like your two projects and the other projects that may be in development, do you think you're bringing something different or a new perspective to the horror genre, which, as we've discussed extensively, is so rich already.
Definitely, definitely. Development is something we take very, very seriously because the market is crowded with product. We have seen anyone who goes to a film market or a film festival will see so many films. And also, you go to one of the big markets like Berlin, for example, and it's thousands of films. But still, and also digital cameras and the whole digital technology made the act of filming so much simpler, so much affordable. Not necessarily simple, but at least more affordable. That lots of people are making films, which is something that 20 years ago would never be possible at that price. So there's too many films available, and yet we have even less screens than we had perhaps 20 years ago. So you do the math yourself. It doesn't end well. So if you want to have your film distributed and enjoyed by audiences, if you want to have it sold and communicated to audience, if you want it to reach the audience, it really has to be something that is amazing. I find it funny that sometimes people in television or in film, they say that if you want to make money, if you want to have successful, you have to give audience what they want. In Portugal, this is a very, very, very common argumentation that people say that if you want to work with genre movies, you have to give the audience what it wants. But that's a big mistake. You never, if you want to be successful, if you want to have a great film done and in order to reach the audience, it cannot be just that. Because there are lots of films who do exactly that. Give the audience what it wants. If you really want to make a great film, you have to surpass expectations. You have to give the audience something the audience is not expecting. Something that they never thought was possible. That's why you have to tell a better story, you have to have a better setup, you have to have better premises, and you have to have a better ending. So you really, really, really have to invest in development. And we do that at Bad Behavior. We try to go sit on the table and do that. And writing, directing, we really work that extra mile. We try to.
Yeah, script is paramount. It has to be something original, or else we just keep at it until we find something special, something that neither of us, and between the two of us, we've seen a lot of horror. Yes, we have to find something that we haven't seen before.
And we spend hours talking. Hours. Countless, I don't know. Talking and discussing and checking and trying things and sending to him and sending to me and back and forth until we get it right. You have to. That's the only way to get it right.
You talked a bit about the kind of conditions that people face in producing films in 2014, but we can say like the past 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. Are there any other major factors that you feel have really changed the game, either on the production end? I mean, now we have crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, which 10 years ago was barely a reality. But there's also conditions of technology within films that is this mounting pressure that some filmmakers feel, that they're like, how do I integrate the contemporary world into the script element or into the actual piece? Do you feel is there anything particular that stands out for you?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
There's like two questions going on. It's like there's
Right.
there's two levels. There's like the kind of production end where things have changed, the market has changed, the internet,
Right, VOD,
crowdsourcing,
stuff like that.
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then there's like the cell phone conundrum. What do you do with the cell phone in the horror movie? Do you lose the battery? Do you ignore it? How do you integrate the
that kind of
contemporary?
cell
Well,
phone.
yeah, that's
Right.
the.
No,
there's two questions,
I
and
was
they're
thinking
both
about
really huge
watching
questions.
movies in the cell phone. I thought you were talking about that.
You can talk about that too. That's great. If you want, like, should people watch horror movies on a cell phone?
There is one thing that is definitely is here to stay, which is films are not meant to be watched in a big screen anymore. Multi-platform is here to stay, it seems. Everybody is watching movies everywhere, and on their cell phones, on their iPads, on their computers, someday on their wristwatches, I don't know. Anywhere it suits you, that's okay. used to be said that content is king. If you have content that people want to see, people will you can sell it by the price that you want because people will pay anything to see it. Well, that seems not to be true anymore. Today, I think we're starting to see that accessibility is king. It's because piracy is here, and if you don't give me what I want to watch, I'll watch it anyway. So instead of relying on content, I think people on this side of the camera should be relying on accessibility, because
but also content.
Of course,
Yeah.
content is also will always be important.
Yeah, sure
but
people get access.
It's irrelevant to have great content if you don't have accessibility, because people will watch it anyway, and will not pay you. So if you really want to, if you have great content, you have to match it with accessibility. So I find it interesting that today, so many people still are thinking about the movies as they're supposed to be seen on the big screen. I am from that generation, and I still believe that because of my generation. But you look at the televisions we have in our homes today, and we never had those televisions in ever. They're huge, and they are all widescreen. So slowly, technology is really bringing cinema into our homes, into our laptops, into the bus you drive, you take a ride in. So it's everywhere. That's something that to me is very clear. Also, at the same time, there is the crowdfunding thing, which seems to also have to be here. However, because it's so popular, it's already overcrowded. The main issue regarding the future is that it changes so fast. You said, for example, digital distribution, crowdfunding, accessibility, these are all things that are relatively new. Mm-hmm. They're changing the way we watch movies, the way they sell movies, is watching what we have to do in order to get to the audience. It touches so many issues, and at the same time, they are evolving so fast. So probably if we talk about the same issue next year or 2 years from now, there will be something new that we will have to throw into.
Yeah, my thoughts on crowdfunding is just that in the beginning I thought it was a good idea, and now I'm not so sure it's a good idea for everyone. I think you have to first get a fan base interaction, and then it's an awesome idea. But when you have like the Hollywood types getting into it, again, they have all the right to get into it. And the people, if they put the money on, it's because they believe in the project and they want the project. But the thing is, those guys have access to other ways of financing, and I think they should let these people, like the money for these people, for people that are starting up or just in the beginning or are smaller than, like, I don't know, the what was it, Zach Braff? Yeah, that was just the extreme example, a guy that had a huge legion of fans taking advantage of that. And the thing is it wrong? Or I think from a morality standpoint it is, but I in his position would do the same. So about crowdsourcing, I don't know. We're gonna do it, but we're not gonna do it right now because right now we don't have a fan base, and it just wouldn't work. So we have to build content, bring the people in, and when we have something to show, we can then ask for their pledge because they know we can deliver. So I think it functions like with that in mind. If people already know you can deliver, it's an awesome way to get to the fans, yeah.
I think it's interesting you actually bring that up because I recently read, I don't know if you know, the New York Times has, I think it's weekly or a bi-weekly article on ethics.
Right.
And there was a recent one on the ethics of crowdfunding related to Zach Braff.
Right.
And the conclusion was, it's a beautiful article. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. I wish I remember the author, but Google, you'll find it.
Right.
But basically they kind of analyze the entire situation, and they look at the ups and downs and the ethics of someone who obviously has means
exactly
doing it. And the conclusion, there was like a lot of different layers. I think the author says it's not ethically wrong, but it's problematic. However, if you look at the greater good that he did in doing that, as an initial project, as someone early on. Technically, it brought like over, I think it was like over 400,000 people who've never backed a project before.
Exactly, yeah.
Backed a project, and a certain percentage of them started to back other projects.
Exactly, yeah, and that's
it's
great.
Just, I think the kind of conundrum and the problem is going into the future, is it going to be dominated by these kind of Hollywood types or these huge productions where there's going to be more money? They're going to say, oh, Zach Braff funded project, Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
More studios saying, we don't need to fund you because you have these other venues and you have other celebrities. And well, that's the kind of problematic gray area, but uncertainty.
It's up to the audience.
Yeah.
They're the ones to decide what to back. And the thing is, I think there's room for both. Like the great Hollywood types and us that are just starting, or indie guys or stuff, people from video games that are like one guy with a computer. I think it's on the side of the audience. Who do you want to back up? You want to see more stuff from like Zach Braff, so give the money to him. You want to see original content, something that you've never seen before, or catch a snippet or a trailer. You think, oh, that's interesting. I want to put my money on that. So it's always up to the audience.
That is funny because that is one of the domains where the market will find its way. There will always be people who don't need necessarily crowdfunding that will tap into that way of financing their movies. I'm sure that, well, Disney don't do this, please. I'm sure that if Disney would start crowdfunding the Star Wars, they would break all the records. Perhaps they would raise. They need 200 million to make a film. They would get it. I'm sure they would. But then again, it's all back to the market. I'm sure if Disney wants to do it, they will do it. And there will always be people who, and those who will fund that type of project will probably not fund a documentary about fighting HIV in Africa. Because the audiences are different. They fund different stuff. I mean, I am a backer in Kickstarter, and I, from time to time, regularly, I go look for projects that speak to me. Some do and some don't. And hopefully, let's hope that in the long run, that's exactly how the backing community behaves.
You have another project we've talked a bit about Through the Eyes of the Child, but you have one that's going into production hopefully this year.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that one as well?
Well, yeah, that one.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Yes,
Go away.
no, go away. I want to talk about it. It's called Red Party. It's a working title, and it's about how much of the script should we give away? It's
as little as possible, and as little as possible for them to watch to know the ending, and as much as you can in order to get. I want to watch it.
Like just the premise then. So it's, imagine you live in the world of Ghostbusters, and that whole thing just happened in the city. Now you know ghosts are real. You know, there's no doubt about that. So there is a college degree that you can take. That's abnormal psych. And if you have intuition, or if you ever caught a glimpse of something, you can take that course, and the teacher is a professional medium, and she will teach you how to own your skills to tap into that. So it revolves around a group of students and the teacher owning their skills on the other side to figure out exactly what are ghosts. Are they just remnants of the living people, like energy tracks of what happened in life, so they keep looping what they did in life? Or are they still entities that think, even though there's no brain attached?
Well, they're all this and haven't to.
And where are you going to be shooting that film?
We're going to be shooting in Lisbon, but in English with a UK cast.
And what are the challenges that I'm assuming that's a co-production, or is it
No, it's
not
not.
even?
It is a co-production between Brazil and Portugal. But the film is already funded. We didn't need anything more. Actually, the financing wasn't easy, but once we found the right financing structure, the financing way to get it, to make the film possible, it was pretty fast. it was from the beginning. It is supposed to be a very, very, very small budget, and at the same time, we very quickly we managed to get what we needed. So we didn't need to go to a co-production market or to travel with the project, because it was something that, in the end, turned out to be simpler to put together than expected. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to bring Through the Eyes of a Child here, because, okay, we have this financing plan closed, let's start advancing to what we're going to do next after this.
I think I'm going to start rounding it off. Do you guys have any final thoughts on Through the Eyes of the Child, or bad behavior that you would like to share with people? Or I think for me, as someone who loves film and loves to make film, any particular words of advice for people who are starting up and who want to kind of move forward as filmmakers or as producers? I guess in particular in the horror genre, but general advice is always welcome as well.
Giving advice, I'm at the stage where I'm taking advice.
That's good advice, though. Your advice is to listen to people.
Exactly, as much as you can. Yeah, just learn a lot. Just listen whenever, like here in Frontier was amazing. Like at the cocktails at the end of the day, we have access to everyone. The Frontier people, the off Frontier, the ones that are showing movies, the crews, everyone, and you just try to learn as much as you can from their experience and build your own, and try to own your skills in your time, and then learn from professionals that are doing longer than you have. I think that's the biggest tip I can give, is take other tips.
It's fascinating, because we live at an age where the information is out there. If you want to make movies, if anyone wants to start, there's so much from where you can learn, Mm-hmm. Just coming. If you are in a stage where you can come to these markets, great. If you're still a teenager at home, there is so many things you can do. You can go to YouTube and you get an awesome tutorial on how to do special effects.
And DVD extras, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my school in the beginning.
You can go to Amazon and order any book, and it's going to be at your place in 24 hours. It's amazing. I had a terrific teacher who told me, and she was right. She said to me that it's a privilege to work in this industry. It is a privilege to work in this industry, because you are always doing something amazing every day. There is never a day that was like the previous one. If I had to work in a bank from 9 to 5 checking other people's accounts, I would go crazy. But I'm doing something that I really love, and we're all doing something that we really love. There's something that brought us together. And if anyone really wants to make movies, go make them. You bet you can.
I have one advice, something I learned here, always feed your crew. Everyone keeps talking about that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, what they say is people usually don't think about that, but you need to keep your crew fed during filming, because otherwise they're going to turn on you and you're not going to get anything done. And people apparently overlook that. I think that's obvious. You need to feed people so they can work, and they give the extra because they're well fed and they're happy what they're doing. But apparently some people miss that one, that you need actual food to work. So that's the tip: feed them, keep them fed.
Actually, you need food to be alive.
See? Yeah, people forget that.
It all comes back to the zombie concept too.
Exactly.
You run out of food, people are just going to cannibalize each other, right?
Right. Here, exactly. That's a good one.
Here, now that comes an idea for a film. Now let's consider this. It's a crew that is making film, and the production didn't feed them enough, and they start becoming zombies.
They start eating each other.
They die, and they start eating each other. See? That's art.
That's how it's done. We're going to just pause for a second. Do either of you have questions that you wish that I had asked? You're good, eh? You're fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
It was such a pleasure, as always. I'm so happy you guys have come to Montreal, which I hope you think is a beautiful city.
It is amazing.
It is. It is, and I bought an amazing... Tell them.
He bought a Wookiee hoodie. Yeah,
and you did bring it.
And it's reversible, and it's a Wookiee on one side and Han Solo's jacket on Planet Hoth. from Empire Strikes Back on the other, so he can be
Oh my
either
God.
Han or Wookiee.
I want
Gets
to
a
be a
pick.
Wookiee.
So basically, this is like, I know for me, Fantasia's geek heaven. I'm apparently you
It
guys
is, it
agree.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that whenever I cover the festival, I'm always trying to get everyone I know who doesn't live in Montreal. You're like, if you love horror, if you love fantasy, or
Yeah,
if you
just
love weird
come
shit,
here.
you have to come.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like once in a lifetime,
It is true.
and it's open. I think this is testament. You guys are here talking to us right now.
Yeah, completely.
It's a festival where people really about community, and
That's where filmmakers are made.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think in the next few years we'll hopefully get to see many of your projects.
Yes.
And you'll be here next year at Fantasia.
You bet.
Hopefully also in Brussels. Maybe we'll see you there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about myself. I really want to go. Dear Brussels
Great.
Film Festival, my name is Justine Smith. You know you want me.
Sponsor me.
Yeah, sponsor me. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.